How do you wipe out a tank division using ice and oil? How do you burn down an enemy airfield using just 4 ampules of medicine? In this video, you will hear the story of the most terrifying special forces of the Second World War. They didn't shoot. They solved equations. Their commander, a student only yesterday, turned war into a laboratory experiment with a lethal outcome. You will see methods that make your blood run cold, tribological traps, thermite rains, and the geometry of death. But the most horrifying part awaits you at the end. You will learn how this genius of destruction created the very thing that holds humanity in fear to this day. Don't change the channel. This finale will force you to rethink the price of victory. 30 degrees below 0 Celsius. At this temperature, carbon steel changes its crystal lattice structure, becoming as brittle as glass. Human flesh freezes in the wind in 15 minutes, turning into necrotic tissue. This isn't just winter. It is a thermodynamic anomaly that equalizes the living and the dead. Here, in the Volokolamsk direction, the laws of humanism have been repealed. Only the laws of thermodynamics and solid mechanics remain. December 1941. Full-profile trenches have been dug into soil with a hardness comparable to grade 500 concrete. 12 fighters, 12 living units with depleted glycogen reserves and cortisol levels off the charts in their blood. They have no artillery support. Contact with the regiment was cut off 3 hours ago. The airwaves are silent, filled only with white noise and German speech. Lieutenant Ilya Gordeev brushes the frost off his map case. He is 24 years old, a graduate student in the physics department of Moscow State University. 3 months ago, his biggest problem was defending his dissertation on the theory of elasticity. Now his problem is 4 T-4 tanks, moving from the south at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. He doesn't see them as enemies. He doesn't see the crosses on the armor or the ideology of Nazism. That is poetry. Gordeev sees 40 tons of alloy steel possessing colossal kinetic energy. Mass times velocity squared, divided by 2. He runs this formula through his head while his trembling fingers try to hold a pencil. The roar of Maybach engines is audible from 5 kilometers away. Low-frequency vibration, around 20 Hz, resonates in the chest, causing instinctive animal terror. This is physiology. The organism senses the approach of an object whose mass exceeds its own by 500 times. "Comrade Lieutenant!" Private Volkov's voice cracks into a falsetto. "They'll crush us! We need to pull back! The forest is close! We can leave through the swamps!" Volkov is a former collective farm bookkeeper. There is panic in his eyes. His pupils are dilated, his breathing shallow. He has already lost. In his worldview, a tank is an invulnerable monster. In Gordeev's worldview, a tank is a complex system of levers, gears, and pistons, subject to the same laws of physics as a falling apple. Gordeev slowly turns his head. His face, wind-burned to the texture of parchment, expresses nothing. Emotions are an unnecessary expenditure of energy. "Belay the panic." The lieutenant's voice sounds dry, like the crack of a breaking branch. "Retreat is impossible. Behind us is a key intersection. Losing control of it means disrupting the logistics of the entire division. We are staying." "With what are we going to hit them?" Volkov screams, pointing at the empty crates that once held 45mm shells. "We have 2 grenades and rifles. It's suicide." Gordeev takes a step toward the soldier, a sharp slap across the cheek. Not out of malice. It is simply an impulse, necessary to reset neural pathways locked in fear. Volkov falls silent, gasping for the frosty air. "It is not suicide, Private. It is a problem, an equation with 3 unknowns, and we will solve it. Gordeev returns to the parapet. He looks at the road. The landscape here is of key importance. The road makes a sharp turn at a 90-degree angle, curving around a steep ravine. The elevation change is 12 meters. The slope angle is 35 degrees. A vector diagram instantly constructs itself in the physicist's brain. Centrifugal force, sliding friction force, the force of gravity. The tank stays on the road solely due to the traction of its tracks with the ground. The coefficient of friction is currently around 0.4. This is enough for a 40-ton machine to negotiate the turn at speed. But what if we change a variable? Gordeev closes his eyes. He sees the formula. Force of friction equals mu times n, where n is the normal force, and mu is the coefficient of friction. He cannot change the mass of the tank. He cannot change gravity either. That means he must zero out mu. If the coefficient of friction drops below 0.1, steerability becomes a fiction. The tank will turn into an uncontrolled projectile moving by inertia. Newton's first law will become its sentence. A body will maintain a state of uniform rectilinear motion. Straight into the abyss. Sidorov, Kuzmich, to me! The command sounds crisp, like a gunshot. Two fighters crawl up, their gear rattling. Old Sergeant Kuzmich spits out some cheap tobacco, looking at the lieutenant with grim mistrust. Listen to the objective. Do you see that bend in the road? The one over the ravine. Yes, sir, Kuzmich responds hoarsely. We need to turn those 50 meters into a skating rink. A perfectly smooth surface. A mirror. There's no water, Comrade Lieutenant. The creek is frozen to the bottom, Sidorov objects. There are barrels of waste oil in the wrecked truck in no man's land. There is snow. We are going to melt snow, mix it with oil, and flood the road, layer by layer. The Germans will be here in an hour. Kuzmich looks at his watch. It won't have time to freeze. At this temperature, water crystallizes in seconds. The oil will create a film that won't let the tracks grip even the unevenness of the ice. We will lower friction to a critical minimum. Gordeev tears a sheet from his notebook and quickly sketches a diagram. The velocity vector is directed tangent to the trajectory. The centrifugal force vector is directed away from the center of the turn. Do you understand what we are doing? Gordeev looks into the soldier's eyes. We won't be shooting at the armor. The armor is thick, 70 millimeters on the front. A shell won't take it. But physics will take it. We will make their own mass work against them. Their speed will be their killer. The soldiers are silent. In their eyes is a mixture of lack of understanding and desperate hope. They are used to fighting with bullets and bayonets. The idea of fighting with formulas seems like madness to them. But the lieutenant speaks so confidently, as if he is reading a lecture at a university department, not standing knee-deep in snow in the face of death. And if it doesn't work? Volkov asks quietly, coming to his senses. If they drive through? Gordeev grins. The grin comes out predatory, devoid of warmth. In physics, there is no word if, Private. There is cause and effect. If we provide the necessary conditions, the result is inevitable. It is a law of nature, and laws of nature know no pity and take no bribes. The rumble grows. The earth begins to tremble with a fine shiver. Gordeev feels the soles of his boots vibrating. 4 diesel Maybach engines with a combined power of 1,200 horsepower are approaching, burning liters of fuel to bring death. This is a war of resources, a war of energies, and right now, in December of 1941, intellect is the only resource that hasn't yet been exhausted. Let's go! Gordeev yells, shouting over the noise of the wind. Buckets, helmets, mess tins, everything into action. Haul the oil, move, run! Every second is a meter of distance to the enemy. 12 men bolt from their spots. It is not a battle beginning. A laboratory experiment with a lethal outcome is beginning. Gordeev looks at the gray ribbon of the road. There is no longer fear of steel monsters in his head. There is only cold calculation. He is turning the battlefield into a classical mechanics problem. The wind picks up, throwing prickly ice grit into their faces. Gordeev knows. This wind will accelerate the freezing of the mixture. Even the weather is now a variable in his equation. He is the architect of a trap, built not of concrete, but of knowledge. Integrals and differentials, which seemed like abstractions in the lecture halls of Moscow State University, are gaining flesh and blood here and now. They are capable of killing. And Gordeev intends to prove this in practice. The roar of tank engines hangs over the forest like a dense infrasonic curtain. It presses on the eardrums, inducing nausea. The distance is closing. We have, by my calculations, no more than 40 minutes until visual contact. 40 minutes to change physical constants on a specific patch of land. The work proceeds at a pace close to the anaerobic threshold. The body burns its last reserves of glucose. Muscles are clogged with lactic acid, but stopping is impossible. 12 people have turned into a single mechanism for transporting reagents. We are not soldiers right now. We are lab assistants in the most terrible laboratory in the world. "Careful with the barrels," I shout, drowning out the howl of the wind. "Don't splash it. This isn't just oil. It's our only chance to zero out the friction." The fighters drag rusted barrels of used machine oil found in the bed of a smashed truck. The sludge is thick, black, saturated with combustion byproducts and metal shavings. At -30, its kinematic viscosity increases tenfold. It flows slowly, like molasses, reluctantly leaving the container. We are creating a layer cake of death. First layer, water. Private Sidorov and 2 other soldiers carry it in canvas buckets from an ice hole they barely managed to punch in the ravine. Water is the base. Upon freezing, it forms a crystal lattice, hard but not slippery enough for heavy tracked vehicles. The steel tracks of German panzers have grouses designed to bite into ice. A simple skating rink is not enough. We need an anomaly. "Pour it evenly," I command, watching steam rise from the buckets and instantly turn into icy fog. "The layer must be monolithic." The water hits the frozen ground of the road and instantly gives up heat. The phase transition from liquid to solid happens before our eyes. Seconds, and before us is a crust of ice. But it is uneven, bumpy. Second component, industrial salt. We found a sack in the cab of the same truck. Sodium chloride, ordinary salt, which is now playing the role of a catalyst for catastrophe. "Sprinkle it, but not in piles. Sow it like grain." Kuzmich works with a shovel, scattering white crystals over black ice. "Comrade Lieutenant, why salt?" he wheezes, wiping sweat that immediately freezes on his forehead. "It'll melt the ice. We'll just make slush." I walk up to him, checking the density of the coverage. "Exactly, Sergeant. We need a thin film of liquid. Brine." I explain quickly, in chopped phrases. There is no time for lectures, but understanding the process is necessary for precision of execution. If the ice is dry, the steel-on-ice friction coefficient is about 0.02. That's slippery, but a 40-ton behemoth might catch on. If we add salt, we lower the freezing point of water. A microscopically thin layer of supercooled liquid forms on the surface of the ice, which doesn't freeze even at -20. This is called boundary lubrication. The tank won't drive on ice. It will float on a water film. Kuzmich looks at me mistrustfully, but doesn't drop the shovel. To him, this is sorcery. To me, it is the physical chemistry of surfaces. We are reducing the static friction force practically to 0. Third layer, Used oil. The final touch. Pour it! Black sludge pours over the salted ice. Oil does not mix with water. It spreads on top, creating a hydrophobic layer. Now this isn't a road. It is a tribological trap. A perfectly smooth surface with a sliding friction coefficient below 5/10,000ths. Any body that ends up here loses connection with the Earth. It becomes a hostage to inertia. Looks like snot, Comrade Lieutenant. Volkov winces, looking at his handiwork. Just some dirt. Will it really hold? It won't hold, Volkov. That's the whole point. Nothing will hold. We stand at the edge of the cliff. Below, at a depth of 12 meters, sharp boulders and trunks of fallen trees jut out. The vector of the fall is calculated. If a tank enters the turn at a speed of even 20 kilometers per hour, centrifugal force will throw it off its trajectory. The grip of the tracks won't be enough to compensate for the inertial moment. The velocity vector will remain unchanged, while the curve of the road goes to the side. Result? A departure along the tangent. Camouflage, I command. This is a critically important stage. A black oil slick on white snow is visible for a kilometer. German drivers aren't idiots. Seeing a dark spot, they will drop speed to a minimum or stop. We need them to enter the kill zone at full speed, confident in the reliability of the surface. We take fresh, fluffy snow from the roadsides. It is dry and light. Its albedo, reflectivity, is ideal. We dust the deadly slide with a thin layer of white powder. The layer must be dense enough to hide the blackness of the oil, but thin enough not to create additional friction. It is the work of a sapper and an artist simultaneously. We cannot leave boot prints. We cannot disturb the natural pattern of the snowdrifts. The road must look untouched, packed down, safe. Fix the patchiness. I point Sidorov to a bald spot. Smoother! It should look like just packed snow. Hands refuse to obey. Fingers lost sensitivity 10 minutes ago. We work on autopilot, driven by fear and orders. The frost creeps under our greatcoats, drawing out the last remnants of heat. Thermodynamics is ruthless. Thermal energy flows from a hot body to a cold environment until equilibrium is reached. Equilibrium in our case means death from hypothermia. Done, Kuzmich exhales. We withdraw to our positions. Into the forest, behind the trees, on the outer radius of the turn. From here we will observe the experiment. I look at my watch. The hand counts off seconds. The roar of engines has become distinct. The clanking of tracks is audible. The screech of metal. The characteristic rhythmic sound of heavy diesel exhaust. They are close. My heart beats unevenly. This is adrenaline, a hormone that prepares the organism for fight or flight. But there is nowhere to run, and we will fight with intellect. Comrade Lieutenant, Volkov's whisper trembles. What if they figure it out? What if they stop before the spot? They won't figure it out, I answer, not taking my eyes off the turn. The field of view from the driver-mechanic's observation slit is limited. Vibration blurs the image. He sees a white road. He sees tracks. His brain fills in reality based on experience. Experience tells him that snow is a rough surface. He doesn't know about the oil. He doesn't know about Bernoulli's principle and the mechanics of viscous fluids. He is confident in himself, and that confidence will destroy him. I check my rifle. The bolt moves stiffly. The lubricant is thickening. But I might not have to shoot. My weapons today have become buckets of water and knowledge of friction coefficients. The forest freezes in anticipation. The birds flew away long ago. Even the wind has died down, as if nature also wants to see the result of the collision of human arrogance with the fundamental laws of physics. From around the turn, 300 meters away, The first silhouette appears. An angular turret. A long gun barrel with a muzzle brake. A T4. Behind it, a second. A third. They move in a column, confidently, brazenly. The distance between vehicles is 15 meters. They are observing regulations. "Get ready," my voice sounds inside my head. My lips only move soundlessly. The lead tank picks up speed before the incline. The mechanic gives it gas. I hear the engine roar, spewing clouds of black smoke. He wants to slip through the turn with momentum so as not to lose inertia on the climb. Perfect. He himself is introducing the velocity variable into my equation. Kinetic energy grows proportionally to the square of velocity. The faster he drives, the more terrible the finale will be. The tank approaches our invisible line, to the boundary between mediums, to the bifurcation point where order turns into chaos. "Come on," whispers Kuzmich. "Come on, you bastard. Enter." Now physics will claim its rights. Now Newton will become our artilleryman. The tracks of the lead tank touch the snow-dusted ice sandwich. Visually, nothing changes. The tank continues moving. But I know what is happening in the contact patch. The spikes of the tracks punch through the snow, punch through the thin crust of ice, and hit the oil-salt layer. Friction disappears. Traction drops to zero. The 40-ton machine instantly turns into a sled. Heavy, deadly sleds racing toward the abyss. Science set the trap. The victim took the step. The trap snapping shut is a matter of fractions of a second. Newton's first law, known as the law of inertia, states, "A material point retains a state of rest or uniform rectilinear motion until the action of other bodies forces it out of this state." At 1412, the lead German T4 tank, having a mass of 22 tons, demonstrates the absolute validity of this postulate. The Wehrmacht driver-mechanic makes a fatal mistake. Feeling a slight skid at the entrance to the turn, he instinctively yanks the left friction lever, trying to straighten the machine. On dry ground, this would have worked. The track would have locked, creating rotational moment. But under the tracks, there is no ground. Under them is our laboratory work, a mixture of oil, salt, and ice, with a sliding friction coefficient approaching zero. Traction vanishes instantly. The static friction force that held the steel behemoth on the curved trajectory is annulled. Only centrifugal force remains. The velocity vector is directed along the tangent to the arc of the turn, straight into the cliff. The tank ceases to obey controls. It turns into an uncontrolled physical body sliding on icy lubricant. The driver stomps on the brake. This exacerbates the situation. Locked tracks slide even better than rotating ones. "We have contact," Gordeev whispers. "The vector has gone." The machine tears off the roadbed. Gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared, claims its rights. The tank hangs for a fraction of a second over the edge of the ravine, tipping over its center of mass, and crashes down. The roar of the impact is not like an explosion. It is the sound of metal deformation. The screech of steel against granite boulders at the bottom of the ravine. The potential energy accumulated at a height of 12 meters instantly converts into the kinetic energy of impact, and then into the energy of structural destruction. The turret is torn from the ring. Road wheels fly apart like shrapnel. The second tank follows. Distance, 15 meters. Driver reaction time, 0.8 seconds. Braking distance on oily ice at 30 kilometers per hour, infinity. He sees the lead tank disappear into the abyss. He slams on the brakes. Inertia, multiplied by mass, drags him after it. This is no longer war. It is billiards played with multi-ton balls. The second panzer crashes into the stern of the first, which hasn't yet managed to slide to the bottom completely. The impact is elastic. The law of conservation of momentum works flawlessly. The second machine is spun 180 degrees and tipped onto its side. It slides down the slope, crushing the undergrowth and snapping young birches like matchsticks. Infantry. Troops on the armor. Humans are soft bodies, biological objects not designed for collision with solid objects at such speeds. When the tanks begin the waltz of death, the soldiers sitting on the armor try to jump off. They jump onto the ice. The coefficient of friction of their boot soles against our mixture involves the same negligible values. They fall. They cannot stand up. They roll under the tracks of their own machines, which, spinning idly, grind everything that enters the contact zone. The scream is drowned in the roar of diesels. There is no room for pity here. There is only strength of materials. Human bone withstands a certain load in compression. A tank track creates pressure exceeding this limit hundreds of times over. The result is predictable: liquidation of the biological unit.
"The third one stopped!"
Volkov shouts, forgetting regulations. The third tank in the column manages to stop at the very edge of the oil slick. Its tracks freeze a meter from the zero friction zone. Behind it, the whole column halts. A traffic jam. Logistic collapse. The Germans are in a panic. They don't understand the nature of the impact. They see two tanks simply vanish, and infantry rolling on the road, unable to get up, as if paralyzed. An officer jumps out of a truck, tries to run to the cliff, and immediately falls, hitting the back of his head painfully on the ice. He tries to get on all fours, but his hands slide apart. It looks grotesque. The master race that conquered Europe is crawling on its knees before a Soviet ravine, defeated by a high school physics course. "Fire on the infantry!" Gordiev's voice is devoid of triumph. "Rifles, single shots, save ammunition. Don't touch the tanks." The dry crack of rifle shots cuts the frosty air. This is not a battle. It is a shooting gallery. The targets are static or moving chaotically and slowly. The Germans on the ice are ideal targets. They cannot find cover. Any sudden movement leads to a fall. They try to raise their submachine guns, but the recoil, the vector of force which is directed into the shoulder, pushes them back, and they slide again, losing their balance. "Volkov, to the left," Gordeev corrects, not lowering his binoculars. "Officer by the wheel. No lead needed. Distance 100 meters. Trajectory is flat." A shot. The officer jerks and goes quiet. The kinetic energy of the bullet is absorbed by the body. Below, in the ravine, one of the machines catches fire. Fuel tanks are deformed. Gasoline vapors met a spark from metal rubbing against stone. Thermodynamics completes what mechanics started. Flames engulf the steel skeleton. The temperature at the epicenter grows rapidly. The ammunition load begins to detonate. Explosions inside the tank sound muffled, like hammer blows underground. Shells burst in the breaches. The turret of the second tank is thrown 5 meters to the side. This is the work of expanding gases. Gordeev lowers his binoculars. His face is gray from cold and tension. There is no joy of victory in his eyes. He sees numbers. 2 destroyed tanks, minus 30 enemy soldiers. Ammunition expenditure on our side, 20 cartridges. Material expenditure, 200 liters of water, 5 kilograms of salt, a barrel of waste oil. Efficiency is off the charts. Efficiency approaches 100%. "Cease fire," the lieutenant commands. "We're leaving. They'll come to their senses soon and blanket the grid square with mortars." Mission accomplished. The equation is solved. The soldiers look at him differently. An hour ago, they saw him as a crazy professor with buckets of water. Now they see a mage who sent a steel armada to hell with a single stroke of a pen. But Gordeev knows. There is no magic. There is only knowledge of the properties of matter. Comrade Lieutenant, Kuzmich looks at the bonfire blazing in the ravine. It's like cows on ice. They couldn't even turn the cannon. The angular velocity of the turret is too low to compensate for the rotation of the hull during the fall, Gordeev answers automatically, slinging his rifle behind his back. Let's go. We need to get to General Belov's headquarters. I have ideas on how to scale this experience. They withdraw into the forest, dissolving into the white silence. Behind them, at the turn, remains a monument to human stupidity and the triumph of the laws of nature. The German column is paralyzed. Tankers are afraid to move from their spots, probing the treacherous ground with their tracks. They are waiting for sappers. They have lost time, the most valuable resource of war. Gordeev brings up the rear. He analyzes what he saw. The scheme worked, but it is situational. Specific terrain is required. Frost is needed. The element of surprise is needed. This is a tactical solution, not a strategic one. To stop the front, something greater is needed. A system is needed. He thinks about the thermodynamics of an explosion, about the detonation velocity of TNT, about the combustion temperature of thermite mixtures. War is a giant thermodynamic system tending toward entropy. His task as a physicist is to manage this entropy, to direct chaos to the necessary point. Contours of a new problem are already forming in his head. Explosives are not just a substance. They are concentrated energy locked in chemical bonds. Releasing it is an art. Directing it is a science. The forest closes behind their backs. The wind covers their tracks. Lieutenant Gordeev's history is just beginning. He has understood the main thing. Integrals really can kill more effectively than cannons. All that remains is to correctly set the limits of integration. General Belov's headquarters is located in a log cabin where the air is thick with tobacco smoke and the smell of wet wool. On the table is a map of the operational situation. Red arrows are surrounded by blue wedges. The situation is critical. The defense resource is exhausted. Divisions are bled dry, artillery parks are empty. I stand before the general. My greatcoat is stiff with dried mud and oil. I don't look like a hero. I look like a function that has performed a task with minimal error. Belov reads the report. His eyebrows crawl upward. 2 tanks? Without a single shot from a cannon? The general's voice is dull, congested. Lieutenant, you write here about a tribological trap. Are you mocking me? My front is cracking, and you're reading me lectures. No, sir, Comrade General. I am reporting on a method. We used gravity and a low coefficient of friction. It is reproducible. It is cheap. And it kills. Belov puts down the sheet. He looks at me with a heavy, appraising gaze. He is a cavalryman, a man of the old school, used to sabers and maneuver. But he is smart. He understands that old methods work poorly against Guderian's tank wedges. He needs a miracle. I am offering him not a miracle, but a technology. What do you need? He asks. People, but not infantry. I need engineers, chemists, geologists, those who can calculate in their heads faster than a fuse burns. Give me a platoon and carte blanche for personnel selection. I will create a unit where the weapon will be intellect. Belov is silent for 10 seconds. These 10 seconds decide the fate of hundreds of people. Proceed, Gordeev. But if this turns out to be a young technicians' club, you will be the one facing the tribunal. Thus begins the selection. I sift through the personnel of reserve regiments like a gold prospector sifts sand. I am not interested in bicep size or the ability to stab with a bayonet. I look at the civilian specialty column. Math teacher, polytechnic student, fertilizer plant lab technician, architect. The officers in the regiments look at me like I'm a lunatic. I take the runts, thin, bespectacled with intellectual faces who would last 3 seconds in a bayonet charge. To an infantry commander, they are ballast. To me, they are carriers of computing power. 20 people, a special purpose platoon. We occupy the basement of a destroyed school. This is our barracks and our lecture hall. On the wall is a piece of plywood painted black. Instead of chalk, chunks of lime. Forget everything you were taught in basic training, I say, looking into 20 pairs of intelligent but frightened eyes. Shooting is a last resort, meaning your plan has failed. Your task is not to engage in battle, but to create conditions incompatible with the enemy's life. Hellish schooling begins. We sleep 4 hours. The rest of the time is theory and practice of destruction. Lesson 1. Chemistry of an explosion. I draw the formula for trinitrotoluene on the board. I explain the mechanism of detonation. The rupture of intramolecular bonds occurs at a speed of almost 7,000 meters per second. This is a supersonic process. A shock wave is not just a loud sound. It is a jump in density, pressure, and temperature propagating through a medium. An explosion is a gas dynamic process, I articulate clearly, while Ryabov, a former chemistry teacher, writes formulas in a notebook. To destroy a bridge, you don't need to plant a ton of explosives just anywhere. You need to find the point of structural stress and apply the force vector exactly there. Strength of materials is your best friend. We study the properties of materials, steel, concrete, wood, how they behave under sharp dynamic loads. We learn to cut metal with shaped charges. This is pure geometry. If the cone in the charge has the correct angle, the explosion energy focuses into a jet of metal that punches through armor like butter. An error in the angle of 2 degrees, and the energy will dissipate in vain. Lesson 2. Electrical engineering and timing. We assemble electrical circuits from garbage, flashlight batteries, wires from downed planes, light bulbs. Ohm's law for a circuit section is a matter of life and death here. If the detonator resistance is too high, there won't be enough current to heat the bridge wire. There will be no explosion. Trembling hands mean a defect, I say, watching Levinson, a former watchmaker, solder contacts. The solder joint must be perfect. A cold solder joint will break off from the vibration of a passing tank. We train to assemble circuits in the freezing cold, in the dark, by touch. Fingers go numb, skin cracks, but the brain must control motor skills. We refine actions to automatism. Breaker, closer, time relay. We set up a proving ground in a ravine behind the village. The snow here is black with soot. We test incendiary mixtures. Ordinary gasoline burns fast and flows like water. It is useless against sloped armor. We need a thickener. Add laundry soap and aluminum powder, comments Ryabov, stirring a brew in an iron tank. The stearin in the soap will provide viscosity. The aluminum will raise the combustion temperature. We ignite the mixture. It doesn't flash. It begins to hum. The flame temperature is over 1,000 degrees. The sticky black mass adheres to a metal sheet simulating a tank side. It cannot be extinguished with water. Snow only hisses and evaporates. The metal begins to turn red, changing temper colors. This is napalm, I state. Primitive, dirty, but effective. It must flow into engine compartments. It must burn out the oxygen. General Belov arrives at the proving ground 2 weeks later. He sees not trim soldiers marching in step. He sees people with singed eyebrows and hands stained with reagents. We demonstrate the demolition of a rail track. Not just a break in the track, but a synchronous detonation of 2 charges, cutting out a piece of rail exactly 1.5 meters long. This makes repair by simple link replacement impossible. The Germans will have to replace the entire span. Then, a demonstration of a directional explosion. A tree 2 arm spans thick is sheared off like it was cut by a razor. The charge was a girdle charge, calculated by formula. Belov walks among the craters, touches the melted metal of the targets. "This is no longer partisan warfare, Gordeev," he says quietly. "This is a factory. This is a laboratory, Comrade General. We are turning war into an industrial process." In the evening, sitting by the potbelly stove, we don't talk about women or home. We talk about a new understanding of war. "Do you know what our strength is?" I ask my fighters. Levinson, Ryabov, the geology student Koval. Everyone looks at the fire. The Germans are a machine. They have instructions, regulations, Ordnung. They are predictable. A machine breaks when it encounters a non-standard variable. "We're the variable?" Koval chuckles. "We are operators of chaos. We introduce entropy into their perfectly tuned system. An ordinary soldier shoots at what he sees. We strike at what they don't see, at their confidence, at their logistics, at their physics." I see their faces change. The hunted look of victims disappears. The cold, calm expression of professionals appears. They have understood. They are no longer cannon fodder. They are operators of death. We become a collective brain. The intellect of each amplifies the common potential. The geologist's knowledge helps choose places for planting mines where the soil will amplify the blast wave. The chemist's knowledge allows creating mixtures that burn even underwater. The mathematician calculates shrapnel dispersal trajectories to create a continuous kill zone. This is a transformation. Humanism, instilled by literature and art, flakes off like dead skin. Only naked expediency remains. Killing ceases to be a sin or a feat. It becomes the result of solving an equation where the variable enemy life must be reduced to 0. "Tomorrow we go out on a job," I announce. "Operation Fire Corridor, testing theory with practice." In the corner of the basement stand crates with prepared charges and bottles of thermite mixture. Written in chalk on each crate is the weight and type of explosive. No "death to fascists," only TNT 200 grams, or thermite type B. Emotions are excess energy dissipated as heat. We cannot afford such losses. We keep the cold inside to create hell on the outside. I look at my people. They are ready. Physicists, chemists, mathematicians. The most terrifying special forces of this war, armed with slide rules and knowledge of the periodic table. Tomorrow the Wehrmacht will learn what an exothermic aluminum oxidation reaction is in combat conditions. February 1942. The forest near Vyazma resembles a frozen black and white photograph. Air temperature, -25 degrees on the Celsius scale. Relative humidity is low. Sound travels with minimal attenuation in such air, so we hear them long before visual contact. A Wehrmacht supply column, 60 Opel Blitz and Mercedes cargo trucks. They are carrying winter uniforms, canned food, and ammunition. To the front, these are resources. To us, they are moving targets consisting of combustible materials and sheet steel. We lie on high embankments, among the roots of spruce trees hanging over the road. There are 20 of us. We are not infantry shooting blindly. We are operators of a complex engineering system, deployed over a section 1.5 kilometers long. My group worked all night. We didn't plant mines in the ground. Frozen earth dampens explosion energy, and Wehrmacht sappers have learned to read the snow. We took a different path. We moved the attack vector into the vertical plane. Secured on the branches of trees, creating a natural arch over the road, are thermite charges. These are not standard munitions. They are homemade containers of roofing iron, stuffed with a mixture we prepared in the school basement. 3 parts iron scale to 1 part aluminum powder, plus a magnesium fuse. The chemistry of the process is simple and ruthless. It is an exothermic oxidation-reduction reaction. Aluminum, possessing a higher affinity for oxygen, takes it from the iron. In the process, a colossal amount of thermal energy is released. The temperature in the reaction focus reaches 2,500 degrees. For comparison, the melting point of steel is about 1,500 degrees. The melting point of human skin is incalculable. It simply evaporates. "Group Omega ready." Ryabov's voice in the earpiece sounds dry. He controls the closers. "Group Delta in position. Power sources connected." We use a series connection for the electrical circuit. An error in one contact will de-energize the entire line. But there are no errors. Levinson soldered the twists with the precision of a jeweler, despite the fact that his fingers were blue from cold. The roar of engines fills the space. Diesel exhaust mixes with the frosty air. The lead vehicle passes my hideout. I see the driver's face behind the glass. He is tired. He is thinking about warmth. He doesn't know that in 30 seconds, the concept of warmth will change for him forever, turning from a blessing into an instrument of destruction. The column pulls into the corridor. They're moving tightly, bumper to bumper, violating distance regulations to warm themselves in the wake of the one ahead. This is a mistake. The packing density of matter increases heat transfer efficiency. I look at the chronometer. The second hand chops time. The calculated entry point of the trailing truck is passed. The entire column is inside the perimeter. "Close the circuit," I command. No screaming, just physics. Levinson turns the switch of the magneto. An electrical impulse runs along the wires at the speed of light. It doesn't look like a normal explosion. There is no roar that bursts eardrums. There is a sharp hissing sound, as if a giant piece of red-hot metal were thrown into water. And light. Blindingly white light, rich in ultraviolet. Burning magnesium and aluminum shine brighter than the sun. Fire begins to pour from the trees. This isn't a metaphor. Liquid iron, the product of the reaction, drips down in heavy, glowing drops. It burns through the canvas tarps of the trucks instantly. It falls on hoods, melting through the thin steel of engine compartments. Engines stall not because they broke, but because the cylinder block turns into a shapeless lump of metal. Piston geometry is violated. Friction increases to infinity. Seizure. The column stops. A chain reaction of panic begins. Drivers jump out of the vehicles, but there is nowhere to run. From above, from the branches, thermite rain continues to fall. The air temperature in the corridor jumps by hundreds of degrees. Oxygen burns out. "Second sector, add oxidizer," commands Ryabov. We activate the side charges. Bottles of KS self-igniting fluid, phosphorus and sulfur. Upon contact with air, the mixture flares up. The fire doesn't just burn, it sticks. The adhesion of the mixture is such that it is impossible to shake off. I look at what is happening through the smoked glass of a welding mask, a trophy taken from a German repair battalion. Without it, one could burn their retinas. The picture below resembles a violation of all laws of conservation of life. An ammunition truck in the center of the column begins to detonate, but not from impact, but from overheating. Shell casings burst, gunpowder flares, but bullets don't fly far. They simply rupture inside the truck bed, tearing the metal of the sides. One of the German soldiers tries to extinguish a burning hood with snow. It is a reflex, and it is a fatal mistake. At the burning temperature of thermite, water instantly breaks down into hydrogen and oxygen. Thermolysis occurs. Instead of extinguishing, he gets an explosion of oxyhydrogen gas. A sheaf of flame strikes him in the face. He falls. The screams of people are drowned out by the hum of the flame. It is a specific sound, a low, uterine roar of high draft. The forest is working like a chimney. "Perimeter control," I remind the group. "No one must leave." We don't shoot. There is no need. We simply observe the completion of the chemical process. The entropy of the system increases to a maximum. The ordered structure of a military column turns into a chaos of burning metal and organic matter. Trucks with uniforms flare up like matchsticks. Wool, cotton, cloth, excellent fuel. The heat is such that the snow on the roadsides doesn't melt, but sublimates, transitions directly to steam, bypassing the liquid phase. The road is shrouded in dense white fog, in which black figures engulfed in flames dart about like ghosts. In 10 minutes, it is all over. The active phase of thermite combustion has ended. Only the fuel and materials remain burning. Silence returns, but it is a different silence. It is filled with the crackle of cooling metal. The coefficient of thermal expansion works in reverse. Metal contracts, making sounds resembling moans. We go down. The heat is still unbearable. The fighters' faces are covered with masks, but even through the fabric, a sweetish, sickening smell is felt, a mixture of burnt rubber, gasoline, and roasted protein. I walk along the row of destroyed vehicles, 60 carcasses. Not one is salvageable. Engines have fused with frames. Glass has flowed onto dashboards, turning into frozen puddles. Next to the lead vehicle lies the body of an officer. He isn't burned. He's suffocated. The thermite reaction burned out the oxygen within the kill radius, creating a local zone of vacuum and carbon monoxide. He died of hypoxia in the middle of a forest full of air. "Material expenditure confirmed." Ryabov walks alongside, holding a notebook. 100% efficiency. Theoretical calculations matched practice. "Collect the remnants of the wires," I order. "Leave no traces of technology. The Germans must think it was an air raid or a new secret weapon. Let them fear the unknown." Fear of the incomprehensible destroys the psyche more than the explosion itself. The fighters silently coil the cables. No one smiles. There is no joy of victory, no bravado. There is only fatigue and an understanding of the scale of the destruction wrought. We just killed over 100 people without even pulling triggers. We killed them with knowledge from a 10th grade chemistry textbook. "Comrade Lieutenant," Koval says quietly, looking at an MG-42 machine gun fused into a single lump. "It's scary, isn't it?" "Scary is when they are in Moscow," I cut him off. "And this is thermodynamics. Job done. Let's move." We dissolve into the forest, leaving behind a fiery corridor that will take another 2 days to cool. In this war, we have crossed a line. We ceased to be soldiers. We became a function of destruction, devoid of anger and pity. Only expediency and the reaction formula of iron oxide with aluminum remained. From the chemistry of oxidation, we moved to the geometry of shadows. If the ambush in the forest was an experiment with temperature, then the sabotage at the airfield is an equation with variables of time and space. There is no room for improvisation here. Any error in calculations of 0.1 seconds means not just failure, it means the death of the group. March 1942. A German jump airfield 20 kilometers from the front line. It isn't just a field. It is a complex engineering system living by a strict schedule. Takeoffs, landings, refueling, patrols, everything is subject to German Ordnung. Order is their strength. But order is also their main vulnerability. Any system working on a rigid algorithm is predictable, and predictability in the physics of conflict is equivalent to defeat. We have been lying in snowdrifts on the edge of the tree line for 3 days now. There are 4 of us: me, Levinson, Koval, and Sidorov. We aren't freezing. We are observing. My binoculars turn the chaos of lights and sounds into a statistical sample. Patrol passes Sector A every 43 minutes, whispers Levinson. He isn't looking at the field. He is looking at a trophy chronometer. His brain, accustomed to the gears of watch mechanisms, is now synchronizing with the rhythm of the enemy base. Margin of error, plus or minus 30 seconds. Searchlights? I ask, not looking up from the eyepieces. Angular velocity of the searchlight turret on tower number 2 is 6 degrees per second. Blind spot during the turn, 8 seconds. Sector overlap with tower number 3, 15 degrees. We draw a graph. The x-axis is time. The y-axis is space. We look for points where the enemy's observation functions tend to 0. These are blind spots. Rips in the fabric of their reality through which we must slip. Objective: destruction of the fuel depot. There, behind the barbed wire, stand cisterns, 1,000 tons of aviation kerosene. This isn't just liquid. It is accumulated chemical energy. The specific heat of combustion of kerosene is 43 megajoules per kilogram. If we release this energy instantaneously, we get the equivalent of a local apocalypse. Next to the cisterns, on the parking pads, 20 Heinkel bombers stand wing to wing. They are waiting for refueling to fly to bomb Moscow. We won't shoot them down in the air. That is inefficient. We will destroy them on the ground, using their own food against them. Move out at 2300, I fold the map. Synchronize watches. The hands align. Now we are not people. We are vectors of motion. We crawl through the snow. White camouflage smocks blend with the surface. We move only when the searchlight beam moves away. It is a dance with photons. If the beam touches us, reflected light will hit the retina of the observer's eye. A neural impulse will go to the brain, from there to the finger on the trigger of a machine gun. Human reaction speed is 0.2 seconds. Bullet speed is 800 meters per second. No chance. Therefore, we move in the dark. 8 seconds of blind spot. A dash of 12 meters. Drop into the snow. Freeze. My heart beats so loudly it seems acoustic sensors would hear it, if the Germans had them. We are at the target. Barbed wire fence. Wire cutters work silently. Metal is snipped with a soft crunch. We are inside the perimeter. The smell here is different. It smells not of pine needles, but of hydrocarbons and grease. It is the smell of technogenic war. The cisterns are huge. The cold metal is covered with hoarfrost. Levinson takes gifts out of his pouch. This isn't ordinary explosives. TNT would work crudely here. It would just rupture the shell. Kerosene would spill out, and might not even catch fire immediately. We need a guarantee of ignition. Phosphorus. White phosphorus in glass ampules placed inside a TNT charge. Upon detonation, phosphorus sprays out, reacting with the oxygen in the air. Combustion temperature, 1,200 degrees. Impossible to extinguish. It is the ideal initiator for 1,000 tons of fuel. Place them on the valves and bottom seams, I whisper. Metal stress is maximal there. The pressure of the liquid column will help rupture the structure. Levinson works quickly. His thin watchmaker's fingers are mining death right now. The timers are chemical. Acid in a tube eats through the wire holding the striker. Delay time, 20 minutes. This is enough to get to a zone of relative safety, but not enough for the Germans to notice anything. One cistern, a second, a third. We create a triangle of fire. Let's go, Levinson nods. The last fuse is activated. Return path. The same equation but solved in reverse order. The same 8 seconds of darkness. The same snow. The same meters that seem like kilometers. We manage to reach the tree line 2 minutes before the calculated H hour. We don't run further. We must verify the result. This is professional deformation. A scientist must record the outcome of the experiment. 23 hours, 20 minutes. First, a flash. It is soundless. The speed of light exceeds the speed of sound. The horizon is lit up with an unnatural, sickly yellow glow. 1.5 seconds later comes the sound. It isn't a pop. It is a low, vibrating blow that hits the chest, knocking the air out of the lungs. The shock wave compresses the air. The cisterns open up like paper bags. 1,000 tons of kerosene turns into a fiery aerosol. A cloud of flame rises up in a mushroom, illuminating the low clouds. The blast wave and thermal radiation cover the aircraft parking area. I look through my binoculars. Duralumin is a light metal. It has a low melting point, just 660 degrees. In the epicenter right now, it's 1,500. The planes aren't just burning, they are flowing. Wings sag, fuselages fold in on themselves. The fuel in their tanks detonates in secondary explosions, adding to the chaos. The Heinkels turn into skeletons. 20 machines, 20 crews that won't take off. Hundreds of tons of bombs that won't fall on our cities. I see running figures against the backdrop of a wall of fire. They are tiny, like ants. The panic is absolute. No Ordnung can withstand a collision with hell. Fire trucks try to approach, but the heat is of such intensity that the paint on them begins to bubble 100 meters from the focus. "Burns beautifully," says Sidorov. There is no gloating in his voice, only a statement of fact. "It's not beauty, Sidorov. It is oxidation." I correct automatically, but I feel something snap inside. I look at this fire and realize a terrible thing. I am no longer Ilya Gordeev, the grad student who dreamed of discovering new properties of semiconductors. I am a calculator of death. I look at the destruction of material assets and personnel, and my pulse remains steady, 60 beats per minute. There is no horror of killing left in me. Only an evaluation of efficiency remains. 20 planes for 4 ampules of phosphorus. The return on investment is astronomical. I have become a master of destruction. I learned to disassemble matter into atoms, but I forgot how to put it back together. 21, counts Levinson. Caught another one on takeoff. Blast wave flipped it. A plane trying to take off in an emergency crashes onto its wing and slams into the burning wreckage of its brethren. We lie and watch German air power burn on this sector of the front. The line between defender and executioner has been erased completely. I know that tomorrow I will calculate a new sabotage mission with the same icy calm. War has devoured my soul, leaving in exchange only a cold mind, sharp as a scalpel. Mission accomplished. I lower the binoculars. Returning to base, we need to prepare a report. And sleep. We walk into the darkness of the forest, leaving behind a glow visible for 50 kilometers. But we know that this victory is temporary. It is just one round in an endless battle of energies. And every victory has a price. Soon I will have to learn what the price of an error is in this terrible equation. Because statistics are inexorable. Sooner or later, the probability of failure is realized. The probability of a random event is never zero. This is an axiom of probability theory. We can calculate the patrol schedule, wind speed, shrapnel trajectory, but we cannot calculate chaos. Chaos is the only variable that always plays against us. April, 1942. A railway junction 30 kilometers from the front line. Mud. A viscous, cold substance with a high coefficient of adhesion. It sticks to boots, increasing the weight of every step by 2 kilograms. It clogs mechanisms. It sucks out strength. Our task is to blow up a switch. It is a vulnerable point of the system. Destruction of the switch frog disables 2 tracks at once. Repair requires replacing the entire assembly, and that means cranes, crews, time. For the Wehrmacht, this is a delay of trains with equipment for 12 hours. 12 hours of downtime is an irreplaceable resource. There are 6 of us, me, Sergeant Kuzmich, and 4 of my academics. Among them is Makarov, a former mechanics and math grad student, a genius of topology, and Sokolov, an architect who now designs structural collapses. We work in rain mixed with snow. Visibility is 20 meters. The sound of rain masks our movements, but it also masks the enemy's steps. We rely on calculations. The patrol passed 7 minutes ago. The next one is in 19 minutes. We have a window. Makarov sets the charge. Tetril, a brisant high explosive of increased power. Detonation velocity, 7,500 meters per second. We need to shear the rail at a 45-degree angle to create an irreparable defect in the track geometry. Check the angle of the block, I whisper. The force vector must go into the base of the rail web. Got it, Makarov nods. His glasses are fogged up. He wipes them with a dirty finger. Ilya, the metal here is fatigued. Microcracks. 300 grams will be enough. He calls me by my first name. This is a violation of chain of command, but here, in the mud, we are not lieutenant and private. We are colleagues in the Department of Death. At that moment, the equation fails. A random variable. A German Obergefreiter came out of the guardhouse early, not on schedule, just to smoke. Or he thought he heard a noise. The reason is unimportant. The result is important. The beam of a pocket flashlight cuts the darkness and rests on Makarov's back. Halt! The shout is sharp, hysterical. A human's reaction to a threat is an adrenaline dump, but a trained fighter's reaction is action. We open fire instantly, but the German manages to pull the trigger of his MP-40 submachine gun. A fan of bursts. Chaotic, unaimed fire from the hip. Statistically, the probability of a hit in the dark is low, but statistics are against us today. I see a 9mm bullet hit Makarov. I don't see a friend. At this moment, my brain, deformed by war, sees the physics of the process. A bullet having a mass of 8 grams and an initial velocity of 380 meters per second possesses kinetic energy of about 500 joules. Upon hitting soft tissues, it transfers this energy to the body. Impact in the chest. The bullet does not pass through. It deforms, flattens, increasing its cross-sectional area. It breaks ribs, a calcium phosphate structure not designed for such point loads. Bone fragments turn into secondary damaging elements. A temporary pulsating cavity arises. The lung collapses. A hydrodynamic shock ruptures alveoli. Makarov falls face down in the mud. His brain, which 5 seconds ago was calculating the explosion vector, is now desperately trying to hold on to fading consciousness. But the pressure drop in the aorta is critical. The system is de-energized. Serega! Sokolov drops the fuse and rushes to him. This is a mistake. An emotional mistake. Sokolov is an architect, a creator. His rescue reflex triggered, suppressing his self-preservation reflex. He stands up to full height, blocking the sector of fire. A second bullet. This time, rifle, from the patrol that rushed over. 7.92 millimeters. Energy, 3,000 joules. This is no longer a hammer blow. It is a battering ram strike. The bullet hits Sokolov in the thigh. It ruptures the femoral artery. Blood pressure in this vessel is 120 millimeters of mercury. Blood spurts in a pulsating jet, carrying life out of the organism at a rate of a liter per minute. Sokolov falls next to Makarov. 2 geniuses. 2 unrealized professors. Now just biological mass losing temperature. "Fall back!" yells Kuzmich, spraying the darkness with his assault rifle. "Lieutenant, pull the cord!" I look at the bodies. My hand clutches the detonator. A thought beats in my head. This cannot be. Error in calculations. Must recalculate. Must find the variable I missed. But it cannot be recalculated. The process is irreversible. Entropy has increased abruptly. I yank the igniter ring. The safety fuse hisses, carrying a spark to the charge. "Drag them!" I scream, grabbing Sokolov by the straps of his duffel bag. We drag them through the mud. Sliding friction is immense. The bodies are heavy, limp. Gravity presses them to the earth, as if wanting to claim them. We crawl under the whistle of bullets, gasping from exertion. I feel sticky, warm liquid on my hands. It is Sokolov's blood. It isn't just liquid. It is electrolyte that carried oxygen to a brain that could have designed a new city. Now that city will never be built. An explosion behind tears the night apart. The rail is severed. The mission is accomplished. But the price does not balance. We retreat into the forest. We drag them another 3 kilometers until we fall from exhaustion. Sokolov dies in my arms. Hemorrhagic shock. Oxygen starvation of the cerebral cortex. He whispers something about arches and vaults, then goes quiet. Pupils dilate, ceasing to react to light. Physical death of the system. We sit in a ravine. Rain washes the blood off my hands, but I still smell it. Iron. Blood smells like rusty iron. I start to shake. It isn't cold. It is the nervous system's reaction to extreme stress. I look at the bodies of my friends, covered with rain capes. I try to analyze this as a statistical loss of combat units. 2 units lost. Group combat effectiveness reduced by 20%. But analysis doesn't work. I don't see units. I see Serega, who treated me to sugar. I see Pashka, who drew caricatures of Hitler. I see people whom I, the commander, led to this point in space-time so they could meet pieces of lead. Tears. Fluid secreted by lacrimal glands. A meaningless reaction of the organism. I wipe my face with my sleeve, smearing mud. "Lieutenant," Kuzmich sits down next to me. He rolls a cigarette with one hand, holding his assault rifle with the other. His face is calm. The terrible, stony calm of a man who has seen death more often than bread. "Don't, Ilya,"
he says quietly. For the first time, he calls me by name without rank. You're counting right now. I see the gears turning in your head, thinking where you messed up.
Thinking why them and not you? I should have foreseen. My voice breaks. I didn't account for the random factor. I am the commander. It is my error in the equation. Kuzmich takes a drag. The cigarette coal illuminates his scars. War isn't an equation, son. It's a meat grinder. There are no formulas to save everyone. A bullet is a fool. It doesn't give a damn about your integrals. It flies where the barrel points. He puts a heavy hand on my shoulder. Want to survive? Want to beat this German scum? Then listen. Shut off your heart. Shut it off completely. Leave only the brain. As soon as you start pitying, crying, remembering, you're a corpse, and you'll get your men killed. Become a machine, Lieutenant. A machine doesn't hurt. A machine does the work. That's impossible, I whisper. I am human. We're human, Kuzmich cuts off harshly. And now you are a weapon. A weapon has no conscience, no memory, no friends. There is a goal, and there is a means. Sokolov and Makarov, they are now means too. Their death is fuel for your hatred. Don't waste it on tears. Spend it on calculations. I look at him. In his eyes is icy emptiness. And I realize he is right. Emotions are a vulnerability. Grief is a destructive program devouring processor resources. To take revenge, to destroy the system that spawned this chaos, I must become an ideal function of destruction. I close my eyes. I imagine a switch turning inside me. Click. The channel supplying emotions is cut off. The pain remains, but it no longer burns. It becomes cold background noise, data archived. We bury them here. My voice sounds even, without a tremor. Grave depth, 1.5 meters. Soil is soft, camouflage with sod. Enter coordinates in the log. Kuzmich nods. He sees. The transformation is complete. The grad student has died. The special detachment commander has been born. A war machine operating on principles of thermodynamics and hatred. Yes, Commander. We take shovels. The physics of digging a grave is no different from the physics of digging a foxhole. The same joules of energy, the same newtons of force. Only the goal is different. We hide in the earth, not the living to save them, but the dead to remember them. But I will remember later, when I solve the main equation of this war, when the result equals 0 for the entire enemy army, emotions disabled, neurohumoral regulation of the organism shifted to a strictly functional mode. My nervous system no longer reacts to external stimuli like that of a normal mammal. No fear, no pity, no doubts. Only pure, distilled intellect remains, solving problems of space optimization. July 1943. We are deep in the rear. The objective is a 2-story brick mansion from the 19th century. Wall thickness, 80 centimeters. Material, red brick on lime mortar. Compressive strength, high. Tensile strength, low. Currently, the headquarters of a Wehrmacht infantry corps is located here. Tomorrow at 4 in the morning, they plan to launch an offensive. Tens of thousands of people, hundreds of tanks, tons of shells. All this giant kinetic energy is ready to crash down on our positions. We don't have the forces to stop this avalanche in a head-on collision. But any complex system can be destroyed by striking the control center. There are 3 of us, me, Kuzmich, and Levinson. We are a surgical instrument. Our task is a lobotomy. We must remove the brain of the enemy army while the body sleeps. 2 in the morning. Perimeter is guarded. Patrols walk on schedule, but with elements of randomness. They are learning. We are too. We approach the rear facade. Here, the blind zone of the observation camera is absent, but there is an acoustic shadow from a running diesel generator. Engine noise, 80 decibels. This is enough to hide the sound of footsteps and even the crunch of breaking bones. A sentry at the back entrance. He is standing relaxed, center of gravity shifted to the left leg. This makes him unstable. I nod to Kuzmich. He is a master of hand-to-hand combat biomechanics. No beautiful strikes from the movies, only levers and points of force application. Kuzmich glides like a shadow. Approach from behind, neck grab. This isn't strangulation, it is twisting. Application of torque to the cervical spine. The force vector is directed perpendicular to the axis of the spine. Ligaments cannot withstand the tensile load. The atlas, the first cervical vertebra, shifts relative to the axis. The spinal cord is compressed. Instant loss of muscle tone. The sentry settles like a sack. No sound, no gasp. Only the dull thud of a body against the earth, hidden by the rumble of the generator. "Clear," whispers Kuzmich. He doesn't look at the dead man's face. To him, it is simply a deactivated bio-robot. We are inside. Basement. Dampness, smell of mold and rat droppings. Above our heads are the oak floor joists of the first floor. Up there, in the large hall, lights are on. A meeting is in progress. Generals are bent over maps, drawing vectors of our deaths. They think they are safe. They believe in thick walls and guards. They don't account for strength of materials. Levinson takes out a schematic of the building we recovered from the archives before the war. Load-bearing walls here and here. His finger slides across the paper. Arch vaults rest on the central column. If the support is removed, the gravity vector will do the rest. We won't blow up the whole house. We don't have enough explosives to turn such a mass of stone to dust. We use the principle of progressive collapse. We will knock out key support points, and the building will fold in on itself under its own weight. We work quickly. Drilling is impossible. Sound and vibration will travel through the walls like waveguides. We use existing niches and cracks in the masonry. Charges, plastic explosive. Detonation velocity, 8,000 meters per second. Brisance is such that it shears a steel rail like a piece of pasta. We mold grey bars directly onto the brick at points of maximum structural stress. Calculated charge weight, 400 grams per point, I whisper. Charge shape, shaped cavity directed into the center of the column. We create a directed impact vector. The explosion shouldn't scatter bricks, but shear the column like a razor. 6 charges, a single network. Electrical method of detonation. It is more reliable than safety fuse. Synchronicity of detonation, down to the millisecond. All supports must collapse simultaneously, so the floor loses stability instantly, giving no one a chance to run out. Timer? Asks Levinson. No. Manual trigger. We need to hear. We retreat to the far corner of the basement, behind a massive foundation projection. This is our safety zone. Relative safety. If the calculation is wrong, and the vault collapses not vertically, but with a deviation, it will bury us along with the generals. I connect the wires to the blasting machine. The red indicator blinks. Circuit closed. Resistance normal. Footsteps are heard upstairs. Dull thuds of boot heels. Screech of chairs being pushed back. Voices have become louder. The meeting is in full swing. Right now, they are discussing how their tanks will break through our defense tomorrow. They are confident in their strength. They forgot Newton's third law. Action equals reaction. Wait, I whisper. Let them all gather. Target density must be maximal. I close my eyes and visualize the house structure. Force vectors, compressive loads, stress diagrams. Right now, this house is an equation in unstable equilibrium. I hold in my hands the variable that will crash this equation to zero. A loud voice rings out from above. Someone gives an order. Apparently, the attack plan is approved. Moment of truth. 3. My whisper is drowned in the beating of my heart, which, contrary to orders, accelerates its rhythm. 2. Kuzmich and Levinson press themselves into the wall, mouths open to compensate for the shockwave pressure drop. 1. Execution. I sharply turn the key. The physics of the process happens faster than the brain can process information. First, a blow to the legs. The seismic wave travels through the floor faster than sound in air. Then, a flash, snatching details of masonry from the darkness. And only then, the sound. Boom! It isn't a crack. It is a single, merged blow of a hammer of the gods. The central column, holding the weight of 2 floors and the roof, disappears. It turns into a cloud of brick dust and gas. The laws of statics are cancelled. The dynamics of destruction come into force. Arches lose support. First-floor joists, deprived of support, sag and snap. I hear a terrible grinding sound. It is rebar tearing and century-old beams breaking. Gravity, 9.8, inexorably pulls thousands of tons of matter down. The ceiling above our heads shakes, lime rains down, but the foundation projection holds. And there, in the center of the building, collapse occurs. The floor of the conference hall falls into the basement, along with tables, maps, and offices. People fall into a cloud of dust and fire. From above, the ceiling of the second floor crashes down on them. Then, the roof. Tiles, rafters, chimneys, a layer cake of concrete, brick, and human bodies. The noise dies down as suddenly as it arose. Only the rustle of settling dust and the crack of breaking wood remain. No screams. No one to scream. Death occurred as a result of compression trauma incompatible with life, in fractions of a second. "Withdraw!" I command, shaking chunks of plaster off my shoulders. "Through the breach in the wall!" We scramble out. The air is dense with dust. Breathing is impossible. We cough, spitting out brick grit. The mansion is no more. There are ruins. A pile of broken brick 3 meters high. Buried in the center of this pile is the Corps headquarters. Operational plans, ciphers, orders, all destroyed by the kinetic energy of the fall. Sirens wail along the entire perimeter. Searchlight beams dart across the sky looking for bombers. They think it was an aerial bomb. They cannot believe 3 men with backpacks caused such a catastrophe. We run toward the forest. Legs sink in wet grass. But we don't feel fatigue. The offensive is thwarted. In the morning, the tanks won't move. There will be no order, no communication, no control. Chaos in the command system paralyzes an army more reliably than a minefield. Before Berlin appoints a new commander, before they restore the headquarters, before they figure out the plans, days will pass. Precious days during which our side will have time to bring up reserves and dig in. We bought time, the scarcest resource of war. I look back. A dust cloud hangs over the ruins like a shroud. I feel cold satisfaction. Not joy, no. Joy is an emotion. And I feel the correctness of the solution. The equation balanced. The answer is correct.
Clean work, Commander, wheezes Kuzmich. Precise as a pharmacy.
Like a construction site, corrects Levinson, wiping his glasses. Reverse demolition. We dissolve into the darkness of the forest. 3 shadows, 3 force vectors. We leave to return in another place, and again apply the laws of physics against those who decided that strength gives the right to everything. They were wrong. Knowledge gives the right. And we will teach them this lesson again and again until the last German soldier realizes that on this earth, even gravity works against them. There is a long road ahead to Berlin, but now I know for sure we will get there.
Because we learned to turn their strength into their weakness. We became the architects of their collapse. May 1945, Berlin. The air here tastes of lime dust and burning. It is a suspension of solid particles less than 10 micrometers in diameter that doesn't settle for weeks. It clogs lungs, covers uniforms with grey coating. The city is dead. This isn't a metaphor, but a statement of thermodynamic fact. The complex, ordered structure of the metropolis, under the influence of colossal external energy, has transitioned into a state of chaos. Entropy has reached its maximum. I walk along Wilhelmstrasse. Glass and brick grit crunch underfoot. To the left is the facade of a building, of which only the facade wall remains. Inside is emptiness. Floors collapsed. I look at the protruding rebar and see a tensile diagram of steel pushed to the breaking point. The ultimate strength was exceeded. The war is over. The act of unconditional surrender is signed.
Legally, it is a period. Physically, it is merely the damping of an oscillatory process. The amplitude of strikes has decreased to 0, but the residual deformation of matter and consciousness is irreversible. Headquarters of General Belov, now Colonel General, is located in the surviving wing of an administrative building. It is quiet in the reception room. Adjutants walk silently on carpets strewn with the same ubiquitous dust. Belov has aged. His face is etched with wrinkles like a map of trenches. He stands by the window looking at the ruins. "Come in, Colonel." He doesn't turn around. I approach the desk. On the red velvet of a small box lies a gold star. Gold density, 19.3 grams per cubic centimeter. Heavy metal. Noble metal. But I see in it only an atomic lattice, cold and indifferent. "Congratulations, Ilya." Belov turns. His voice rasps. "For special merit in developing engineering methods of warfare." Moscow approved it. He pins the award to my tunic. The metal chills through the fabric. I should feel pride, triumph, the joy of a survivor. But inside me is a vacuum, absolute 0 on the Kelvin scale. The movement of soul molecules has stopped. "I serve the Soviet Union." My voice sounds mechanical. It is simply a vibration of vocal cords. Belov sits in an armchair, heavily, with an exhale. He points me to a chair. "You know Gordeev." He lights a cigarette, and blue smoke floats to the ceiling, obeying the laws of convection. "You are a terrifying man." I am silent. I wait for the continuation. Is this analysis? An accusation? "We, old soldiers, are used to thinking of war as a duel. Bravery, maneuver, hurrah! But you came and turned war into arithmetic. You removed the fury from it and left only efficiency." "Efficiency conserves resources, Comrade Colonel General," I answer. Our task was minimizing losses of our own systems, while maximally destroying enemy systems. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Belov chuckles, but his eyes remain icy. "Systems. To you, people are systems. You changed the essence of war, Ilya. You made it a job for accountants of death. When we burned tanks near Moscow, it was a feat. When your boys blew up the Corps headquarters, it was pest control. I look at my hands. They are clean. There is no gunpowder soot or oil on them. But I know these hands calculated the trajectories of the death of thousands of people. I remember the formula of every explosion. I remember coefficients of friction, combustion temperatures, shrapnel dispersal angles. Science knows no morality, I say. It is a tool. A hammer can drive a nail, or it can crush a skull. The question is in the vector of force application. Science. Belov puts out the cigarette, forcefully pressing it into the ashtray.
Do you think you'll go back to your university? Will you write about electrons with chalk on a blackboard?
This question hits more precisely than a sniper. I look out the window at the skeleton of Berlin. I tried to imagine it yesterday. An MSU lecture hall, sunlight falling on desks, students, silence. And I write the Schrödinger equation, but the picture doesn't come together. Instead of students, I see my dead friends. Makarov with a shot-through chest, Sokolov bleeding out in the mud. Instead of chalk in my hand, I feel the weight of a detonator. My brain is reformatted. Neural connections responsible for abstract thinking are burned out. In their place, new circuits have grown, sharpened for solving problems of destruction. I look at the destroyed house opposite and cannot simply see ruins. I automatically calculate how much TNT is needed to bring down the remaining wall, where to place the charge, how long a cord is needed. This is professional deformation that has become pathology. I have become an architect who only knows how to demolish. I don't know, Comrade Colonel General, I answer honestly. I'm afraid formulas on a blackboard will seem too bloodless to me now. Belov nods. He understands. War doesn't let go, Ilya. It eats into the subcortex. You learned to kill with your mind. Such a skill is not forgotten. And I'm afraid we will still need it. The war is over. This one, yes. Belov stands up and walks to the map on the wall. Now it is a map of Europe. New borders, new zones of influence. But physics hasn't gone anywhere. Reaction is growing. The Allies, they saw how we fight. They are afraid. And fear is a catalyst for aggression. I walk out onto the street. The Berlin sun shines brightly but doesn't warm. I sit on a step of the Reichstag. The stone is warm. Granite absorbs infrared radiation. Around me, soldiers write their names on columns. Ivanov, Sidorov, we made it. They laugh, drink wine, shoot into the air. For them, this is the finale, catharsis, release of tension. I sit alone. On my chest is a gold star. In my head is the emptiness of scorched earth. I feel like a spent rocket stage. I put the cargo into orbit. I performed the function. But now I am falling back into the dense layers of the atmosphere, and I will burn up. I remember December of '41, the ice slide. Back then, everything was simple. There was us, there was them, and there was physics helping us survive. Then it seemed like a miracle. Now I understand. It wasn't a miracle. It was the first dose of a drug, the drug of power over matter. We tasted absolute destruction, and we liked it. I look at my boots, covered in Berlin dust. I walked the path from a grad student in love with the harmony of the universe to a colonel who knows how to split that harmony into atoms of pain. The price of victory is not just lives.
The price of victory is the loss of humanity. I saved the body, but lost the soul somewhere between the thermite combustion formula and the shockwave calculation. A group of infantrymen with an accordion passes by. They are singing. They are alive. And I am a function. I am a variable that took the value death, and no inverse transformation exists. Mathematics is cruel. Some operations are irreversible. I take a notebook out of my pocket, the same one in which I drew the ice trap diagram. The pages have yellowed, the corners are frayed. I flip through it. Formulas, diagrams, calculations, a chronicle of annihilation. On the last page is a blank space. I take out a pencil. My hand habitually traces an integral, but I don't solve it. I just look at the symbol, resembling a treble clef or a hook. I close the notebook. Science has lost its innocence. We raped physics, forcing it to work as a prostitute in the brothel of war. And I was its pimp. This is my outcome: a gold star on my tunic and a black hole inside. The victory of reason over evil, in which reason itself became evil to win. The general is right. This knowledge will be useful. The world hasn't become safer. The energy we released hasn't disappeared anywhere. It simply changed form. And soon we will need new formulas. Even more terrible ones. I stand up. Need to go. Ahead is new work, new physics, the physics of decay. The silence in the bunker of the main command post is different from the silence in the forest near Moscow. There, silence was the expectation of death. Here, silence is the guarantee of life. Depth, 60 meters underground. Reinforced concrete, lead plates, air filtration systems. There are no seasons here. Here there is only a constant temperature of plus 20 degrees and the steady hum of computers. I look at the radar screen. A green beam describes circle after circle. 30 years have passed. They call me Comrade Academician. On my tunic are 3 gold stars. My name is on secret lists. My face isn't printed in newspapers. I am Ilya Gordiev, the man who turned from a saboteur platoon commander into the architect of a global stalemate. We won that war, but we didn't win the peace. We just moved the front line from trenches to the stratosphere and into the structure of the atomic nucleus. On the desk before me lies a folder marked Top Secret. Inside is a report on the tests of the R7 article, an intercontinental ballistic missile. This is the pinnacle of the evolution of destruction. I remember the year 41, the ice slide, oil, salt, water, the kinetic energy of a tank equal to half the product of mass times velocity squared. That was 5th grade physics, primitive mechanics. Now I operate with other values. Binding energy of nucleons in a nucleus, mass defect, chain reaction of uranium-235 fission, or, what is even scarier, the reaction of thermonuclear fusion of hydrogen isotopes, deuterium and tritium. The temperature in the epicenter of the explosion is tens of millions of degrees. This is no longer just fire. It is plasma, the 4th state of matter. It is a piece of the sun, ignited by human hands on the surface of the planet. I walk to the mock-up of a silo launcher. My life has closed in a circle. I started by making German tanks fall into a ravine using gravity. Now I build silos where gravity holds rockets until the moment of launch. The principle is the same: energy management. Only the scale has changed. Before, an error meant the death of a platoon. Now, an error in calculations means the death of civilization. We created parity, a balance of fear. In game theory,
This is called Nash equilibrium, a situation where neither player can increase their payoff by changing their strategy unilaterally. If they strike first, we answer. If we strike first, they answer.
The result in both cases is identical: mutual annihilation.
The sum of the game is 0, or even minus infinity. I look at my hands. The skin has become parchment-like. Senile spots have appeared. These hands drew diagrams of ice traps. These same hands signed blueprints for megaton-class warheads. The paradox of my life lies in the fact that I spent my whole life creating instruments of the end of the world, so that this end of the world would never come. I am a pacifist against my will, the most terrifying pacifist in history. I ensure peace not with doves and olive branches, but with multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. My colleague, a young theoretical physicist, recently asked me, "Ilya Petrovich, do you dream of Hiroshima?" I didn't answer him. He wouldn't understand. Hiroshima is a tragedy, but it is an experiment. And what we keep in the silos, that isn't an experiment. It is the absolute argument. I walk to the console.
There is no red button here, like in the movies. Here there is a system of keys and codes, multi-stage protection against a fool and against a madman. But ultimately, it all comes down to closing an electrical circuit. If the circuit closes, explosive bolts will fire. Multi-ton silo covers will open. A gas dynamic launch will throw 100-ton cigars into the air. Sustainer engines will ignite. First cosmic velocity, 7,900 meters per second. Entry into ballistic trajectory. In 30 minutes, hell will arrive on another continent. Shockwave, light radiation, penetrating radiation, electromagnetic pulse, radioactive contamination of the area. We calculated all scenarios. We know how asphalt will melt in New York and how rivers will evaporate. We know the half-life of strontium-90 and cesium-137. We know there will be a nuclear winter. Soot from fires will rise into the stratosphere and block the sun for years.
Photosynthesis will cease.
Food chains will collapse. This is physics, dispassionate, inexorable physics. And it is precisely this knowledge that keeps the world in check. Fear. Animal, primal terror of the total disappearance of the species. As long as this fear is alive, the cannons are silent. I look at the world map on the wall. It is studded with red flags. These are our bases, our ice slides, only on a global scale. General Belov was right back then, in 45. We lost our innocence. Science ceased to be a search for truth. It became a search for ways to survive through the threat of death. I often think about Sokolov and Makarov, about those guys who remained in the mud of 42. They gave their lives so that we would defeat one enemy. And I spent my life creating a weapon that makes war impossible as such. Or am I just justifying myself? Maybe I'm just an old monster who fell in love with the beauty of an explosion. No.
I remember the eyes of that German officer who suffocated in the forest near Vyazma. I remember the smell of burning thermite. I don't want a repetition of that. I am the watchman at the gates of hell, and my key is uranium and plutonium. In the bunker, the lights go out, a scheduled check of emergency power. For a second, total darkness sets in. In this darkness, I don't see formulas. I see the face of the Earth, a fragile blue planet hanging in the icy void of space.
It is defenseless. The atmosphere is a thin film of gas. The biosphere is a thin layer of organic matter. We physicists understood how easy it is to destroy this. We looked into the abyss of energy hidden in matter, and we were horrified. The lights turn on. The hum of equipment resumes. I sit in the chair. I am 80 years old. My time is coming to an end. The entropy of my body is increasing. Soon, I will be gone. But my formulas will remain.
My rockets will remain standing in silos, silent sentinels of the apocalypse.
My legacy is silence. Silence bought at the price of constant readiness to burn the world. It is a terrible price. But humanity has no other currency. We never learned to negotiate in the language of humanism. We understand only the language of joules, megatons, and Röntgens. I pick up a pen. I need to sign the clearance for a new shift. My signature is not just an autograph. It is one more day of peace. I am Ilya Gordeev, former lieutenant, former human. Currently, a function of deterrence. The architect of the cold that shackled the world so it wouldn't burn. And while I am here, while my mind works, winter will continue. A cold war is better than a hot peace. I put a period. The equation is solved. The answer is obtained. And it is final.